Drop it. Power panel. Cenk Uygur, Francesca Fiorentini, host of the Situation Room. Am I allowed to say it like that? I don't know. Trey Crowder. Yes. If you're vaccinated, go to wellreadcomedy.com. Am I allowed to say it that way? By the way,
yeah. You're doing great.
I'm doing great. Okay, great. If you guys want, I could do it in my dad's accent. Go to wellreadcomedy.com. That is red like the color right now. You have to hurry. Okay.
Well, I prefer that to you trying to do it in my dad's accent, you know.
That sounded Italian to me, whatever it was.
It was kind of Turkish. It's really me doing my dad's accent. My dad doesn't exactly sound like that.
I think Chris Pratt could play your dad, is all I'm saying, Cenk.
Well, when they do the Turkish video game movie, then my dad's perfect for it. Yeah. So hang in there. Okay. So tons of news today. I know it's shocking, right? We made even more news today. There was a lot yesterday, and a new batch came in today. Hence, it's called news. So having said that, Francesca, take it away.
Just give me a second to get over that pun. So other than Mar-a-Lago, the one place that took Trump's 2020 election loss the hardest was the state of Arizona, especially if you were a Republican in that state. And earlier this year, if you remember, Republicans in the state Senate led what they called an audit of the 2020 election, specifically in the most populous county, which is Maricopa. Also, of course, disproportionately more people of color there. Biden was the first Democrat to win in that state, win in Arizona in a presidential election since 1996. So obviously they were mad. So what they did was they hired a firm called Cyber Ninja, a pro-Trump firm that had never done an audit before in its probably short lifetime. And after 5 months and a whole lot of money, the results are in, you guys. We have the results. We know what the audit shows. So what did they find? After nearly 6 months and almost $6 million, most of it given by groups that cast doubt on the election results, the draft report shows that the review concluded that 45,469 more ballots were cast for Biden in Maricopa County than for Trump, widening Biden's margin by 360 more votes than the certified results. The draft report found that the count has no substantial differences from the county's certified tallies. SpaghettiOs. Is that what Cyber Ninja intended? Oh my God, they basically just verified the results again. Cenk and Trey, did you see this one coming?
Yeah, no, I didn't, to be honest, because I thought for sure that all right-wingers were tremendous liars. I had no idea that they were actually gonna tell the truth. I was really stunned by it. I'm not the only one, as Francesca's gonna tell you in a minute. Trump was apparently equally stunned. Can't wait for that part. Anyways, but yeah, they say yeah, Biden picked up more votes. But what my favorite is the other folks that were surprised, which is Maricopa County. So their Twitter account started going off on these guys, saying, "Oh, this is not a good audit. Lack transparency, and failed to build trust." I mean, these guys, it turns out they believed in Stop the Steal, the Trump position, even before they started. They were doing a film about how the election was stolen, and they had people who were involved, who were Republicans who were part of it. And I was like, wait, I'm so confused. I'm like, are you criticizing them for being too pro-Trump as they announced that Biden won? Does that make you a Democrat or Republican? So I had to look up Maricopa County, and it turns out the board there is 4-1 Republicans. So the Republicans in Maricopa County are saying, how dare you be biased in our favor? That's why you must have produced the results showing Biden won. Because it doesn't have to make sense.
Well, I also was surprised because the findings, I think, objectively make sense. It's like, the thing that we all knew happened is what they confirmed happened. But it's the first part of this process to have made any sense. Do you know what I mean? Like everything up until this point was very suitably stupid and really fit the scenario down to the name of the firm, Cyber Ninjas. And the people that ran the firm, it was all just really on brand in terms of how stupid it was. So for the ultimate result to be something that seems to fit with reality is kind of surprising to me. But I'm not that encouraged by it because they're just gonna. It's not like they're gonna stop doing these stupid things. They're gonna have more. The digital cowboys will be auditing Texas's results or whatever before long. They'll start trying to flip the the reputation of this Cyber Ninjas firm in their favor now, talking about how though they were, they'll call them deep state. We could never trust them. They'll do whatever they can to continuously shift the goalpost and just keep on keeping on with these, fraudulent accusations. That's what I think. So I'm glad that, objectivity came, reigned in this instance, but I don't think it's going to really matter all that much for them.
Yeah.
In fact, in the second hour, JR, I know, is going to get into a new audit. This failed audit, I guess, since it didn't, it produced the real results, not the fake real results, the results they desired. So it's already doing what Trey, you're saying, is doing. A little bit more background on why I was surprised and why I thought they would somehow, again, just get some kids to make a crayon ballad, do something, find something, find it in a hole, like Shawshank Redemption style, goats, far away, dig it up, whatever. So, because Cyber Ninja has been stalling. Let's go to this. Cyber Ninja, they've been stalling for this release, apparently indefinitely. They passed their late May, late August deadlines, claiming to have fallen ill with COVID. Oh, I can't do the audit. They didn't seem terribly eager to lay their cards on the table as today's deadline approached either, responding to a Maricopa County Superior Judge's ruling that they would have to cough up the findings. Their attorney submitted a letter last week stating they didn't recognize, quote, any involuntary legal obligation to do so. Oh, you don't recognize the judge? Yeah, no, see, I don't even, never even heard of it. Courts, what, who, law? But they were so bad about this, right? They had to disclose their methodology earlier this year, according to another judge's ruling. They're now being nearly subpoenaed by the US House Oversight and Reform Committee. That's like, what just happened here? Let's get to the bottom of this. They're about to subpoena them. At this point, it's a request for the CEO of Cyber Ninjas to appear. By the way, CEO is this guy named Doug Logan. He's a big Trumper, and the whole thing was back. There was the former CEO of Overstock.com donated $1 million to this entire thing. But even some of the Republicans Cenk was mentioning, Republicans who voted to authorize the audit later came to regret their votes. This is according to The Hill, as Cyber Ninjas came under increased scrutiny for opaque and shoddy procedures. The company itself, run by a chief executive who openly embraced Trump's false claims about the election results, had never before conducted an election audit. And yet, they kind of did a good job, right? They found more votes for Biden and they confirmed reality.
Yeah, that's exactly the surprising part about it, is because it seems you would have thought it incredibly unlikely that they would end up doing a good job. And it's funny how surprised the other side apparently is at them doing a shoddy job. Also, them with the COVID, them stalling, do you think they were stalling like that just because they knew that they were finding the results that, that nobody wanted them to find? They're like, and then they started worrying. They're like, oh man, we might get audited. They might audit our audit. What's gonna happen when that happens? Well, this might have been a bad idea, man. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't all a big lie.
Yeah, no, but Trey's already proven right. I mean, the Maricopa County's reaction being that, no, you can't rely on this audit because it was the people who did it were too pro-Trump.
Right.
It's so nonsensical attack against Cyber Ninjas from Republicans that you really can't even make heads or tails out of it. So I think that they've gone in so many infinite conspiracy theory loops that they're lost. They're lost in the multiverse, and they don't know which timeline they're in, right? And so, I mean, but there's so many wonderful things about and hilarious things about this. I like that the funders who gave him $6 million, now Maricopa County is saying, oh, did you know that it was these right-wingers who were financing this outside, private groups? Yeah, you knew that from day one, and you loved it when you thought they were gonna say Trump was gonna win. And then the outside funders are like, did you know these guys have never done an election audit before? Yeah, you knew that when you gave him $6 million. Okay, and by the way, some of it came from the taxpayers of Arizona and some came from these private groups. So all of them pretending to be confused later, including cyber ninjas, who I love that excuse in the middle. They're like, the COVID ate our homework, and so, and the ballots, but we'll get back to you later. And then finally, like months later, they're like, all right, goddamn it, Biden won. Okay, get off our ass.
Yep.
And but look, there's one more thing here, and I'm going to lead into it with one of our members' comments. So tyt.com/join, you're part of the show. So Dank Pro wrote in, Trump was right. I'm getting really sick of winning right now. We've won so many times in this election. We're getting tired of it. You're right to point that out. I love how funny and smart our audience is. But it goes to the point I wanted to make. Out of all of these horrible cast of characters, it turns out Trump is actually the worst, because these guys, they wanted to lie so badly, but they just couldn't do it. They're like, well, we looked at the ballots, we counted them all by hand, and then we spun them around the table. We did everything we could, but damn it turns out Biden won. Whereas Trump would not have hesitated. He just would have been like, oh, Biden vote, Biden vote, Biden vote, Biden vote, light him on fire, who cares? Yeah, just like Francisca said, draw him in crayon and write Trump. Who cares? The point isn't whether you're right. The point is whether you have power or not. So it turns out the bottom of the barrel is actually Trump himself.
Right, which is stunning also to think, because imagine that they didn't actually fake the results. That means they truly believed, truly in their heart of hearts, believed that the election was somehow stolen. Like, that's how good the Kool-Aid is. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's even the grifters hired, given $6 million for this. I mean, Mike Lindell is also like, that's not fake. You know what I mean? That's real delusion. That is real. And speaking of real delusion, we have to go to the response and the reaction to the results of this biased, one-sided, partisan audit conducted by people who've never conducted an audit, by the former president himself, the loser of the 2020 election. Since he's not on Twitter anymore, he's got all the characters he needs, and I apologize in advance for reading them all. But he writes, the fake news, if you don't throw up a graphic, this is gonna be weird for me, is lying about the Arizona audit report. The leaked report conclusively shows there were enough fraudulent votes, mystery votes, and fake votes to change the outcome of the election 4 or 5 times over. Then he lists a bunch of numbers that I don't know where he got from. This is not even the whole state of Arizona, but only Maricopa County. It would only get worse. There is fraud and cheating in Arizona, and it must be criminally investigated. More is coming out in the hearing today. So about the hearing today, we're waiting sort of updates about it, but essentially it seems that this Cyber Ninjas is still going to be recommending a whole host of changes to Arizona voting, which we could see coming. I mean, they didn't have to do this to do what states like Georgia have already done, or states like Texas have already done, right? But so they're talking about, okay, the verification on the outside of the ballot, how is that wrong? And your verification system is bad. So who knows the grift that will spawn off of this, the amount of lies and continued sort of money making and taxpayer dollar schemes that will, this is not the end of it, so to speak.
Yeah, so look, there's the funny part, and then I want to ask you guys a question. The funny part, of course, that it turns out there was a report out, local report out at 10:30. The Cyber Ninjas were going to say that Biden won the election, but Trump, as usual, didn't do his homework and sent the email at 11, half an hour later, saying, "Oh, these are great, credible auditors, and they're going to show all this fraud, etc." If he just read, which I know he's incapable of doing, he would have found out they're actually going to say the opposite. And in fact, they had, like I said, the news was already out. He's so dumb, which by the way goes to like the point that we were discussing earlier, which is, look, Trump is both patient zero in spreading the lies and and willfully so, but he's also patient zero, and it's a rare situation where you could be both of these things. In being the lunatic that actually believes every single conspiracy theory. He's always like, people thought like, oh, he went after Obama on the birth certificate because he wanted to like stoke racial tendencies, etc. Sure, but it's also because he really believed Obama was not born in America. And people like, every reporter thinks, no, nobody's that unsophisticated. Yeah, Trump's that unsophisticated. He's a lunatic. He used to watch Alex Jones, said it's a fantastic show. He believes every one of those conspiracy theories, including his own. But he lives in a space in his head, which is an amazing place, where he could try to physically change things, knowing that he's lying, but still believe it. It's amazing. It's amazing. I've never seen anybody else pull it off before. But the question I was going to ask you guys is, do you think that this will do anything for right wingers in snapping them back to reality? Or no, it's just gonna take another 24 hours and they're back into, cyber ninjas, the Kraken, anti-Kraken bear spray, and it was obviously not wrong, and Satanists.
I mean, I sort of touched on that earlier. I definitely think it will be the latter. Nothing. What is reality? You can't be snapped back into something that doesn't exist if you're on their side of things. You know what I mean? Like nothing. They're definitely going to move the goalposts. They already are. Also, like you were saying, I think they are like Trump, and I think in Trump's brain, like he's such a narcissist and everything that like just the things that he says are true because he says them. You know what I mean? Like that's how his brain works. So that's how he is able to believe all the things that he says, because like what he says is what is real in his mind, and his followers I think are the same way. But no, we're already seeing it with what Francesca was saying about the way they're saying, look, okay, yes, it confirms that Biden won, but it also points to a lot of, foundational problems with the way our elections work. And now we're going to fix those problems. And that just means more voter suppression laws or whatever. They're going to use this as an excuse to continue to try to keep people from voting in any way they can, which is also very, very bad. So that's why I was saying I'm not encouraged at all that this will have like actual positive impacts on them or their big lie or how they feel about any of it, me personally.
Yeah, and last thing, I mean, I think Republicans are still gonna use this report to try and do just that, even though it didn't show that Trump won. So this is from the Elizabeth Howard, who's a counsel at the Brennan Center. She says to the Washington Post, if you read the report, Cyber Ninja gives themselves 1 million outs with these numbers. They're desperately trying to suggest that routine procedures are suspicious, because they don't have election administration experience or knowledge, which is exactly, like, I don't get it, so it's fake. I don't understand how, I don't know how to run an election. The election board must be rigged. And somehow that then does work. So yeah, like I said, I think there'll be more to this story. And there already is, as you will go over in just coming up in a bit.
Yeah, and now they're going to review Texas's, Francesca said. I think, honestly, Trey made the best point. I never thought about it that way, that he's such a narcissist, such a nuclear level narcissist, that he thinks if I said it, it must be true. So hence it doesn't have to be true. That's amazing. It's amazing. For rational people, it is really hard to wrap your mind around that. And so, yeah, and he won Texas. All he could do is unwin it. But for him, it doesn't matter.
Like, why?
Okay, and if he said there was fraud, well, damn it, there was fraud. And if it was in Texas, then damn it was in Texas. And it would show that he won by a bigger margin. And what difference would it make? Well, actually, to him, it would make all the difference, because this isn't about reality, it's about his ego. So if he could say that he won by more in Texas, that would help his ego. And the people who follow him, oh, so sad. So sad. But hey, listen, enjoy your alternate reality. And tell Kang the Conqueror to send us the good one, not the bad one, okay? Okay, really deep into that MCU reference. Okay, all right.
I got it.
Okay, all right, we gotta take a break. So when we come back, more madness from the Republicans. I'm deeply, deeply amused by it. Including later in the show, moms who are against Galileo. They've lost their minds. They've lost their minds. Stay right here. We have a fun show. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Francesca, and Trey with you guys. Fran, take it away.
Yeah. So things aren't going the way that anti-choicers thought they would go after Governor Greg Abbott signed that 6-week abortion ban. There are already 2 lawsuits that have been filed under that restrictive ban that actually allows anyone to sue an abortion provider or anyone who so-called aided and abetted an abortion and earned $10,000 in the meantime. They've both been filed against a San Antonio abortion provider who wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post recently, Dr. Alan Braid, saying that he had continued to perform abortions after the 6 weeks of pregnancy. But the lawsuits that have been filed thus far haven't been by anti-choice advocates. They've been by random, out of state, and both disbarred lawyers who aren't actually that passionate one way or another. In fact, one of them is pro-choice. So let's go to this. From the anti-abortion movement's perspective, neither of the 2 men who filed suits this week is an ideal plaintiff. The Arkansas man, Oscar Stilley, who describes himself in his suit as a disbarred and disgraced lawyer, said he was not pro-life and merely wanted to vindicate the law, by which he means Roe v. Wade. The Illinois man, Felipe N. Gomez, described himself in his complaint as a pro-choice plaintiff. So in fact, they're not a bunch of so-called pro-lifers, right? That's not what's happening here. These are ostensibly pro-choice people, and they might have the opposite impact that the anti-choice groups wanted. They might, in fact, prove that this law is unconstitutional. So the 2 lawsuits allowed Dr. Braid and those representing him to assert the argument that the law is unconstitutional, under both Roe v. Wade, which granted women the constitutional right to an abortion, and Planned Parenthood, versus Casey, which upheld it. So 2 of those. If that defense is accepted on appeal, legal experts say the cases could yield precedents effectively invalidating the Texas law, a significant loss for the anti-abortion movement. And the anti-abortion movement didn't think this through because they're mad in Texas. They're like, wait a minute, we just wanted to scare people. We didn't want people to actually sue, which I think is news to some of us. So this is an interview with one of those anti-choicers saying, quote, "These out-of-state suits are not what the bill is intended for," said Chelsea Human, the Texas state director and national legislative advisor for Human Coalition, an anti-abortion group with the creepiest name, that said it had no plans to file a lawsuit against the physician, Dr. Alan Braid, or to encourage others to do so. Ms. Human speculated that the lawsuits were plants, and she portrayed Dr. Braid's opinion essay as an attempt to bait a frivolous suit that would challenge the law's constitutionality in court. Oh, I feel like you should have thought that one through though. Okay, so there's someone else in this, Mr. Seago, who's with the Texas Right to Life Coalition. Mr. Seago said the anti-abortion movement in the state was united in its wariness of Mr. Braid's vague but high-profile announcement of his violation. Again, the op-ed. Quote, "Notice he doesn't say I'm open for business. Anyone who wants an abortion, here's my address. Schedule a visit," he said. It's a lot more calculated than that. So all of these anti-choicers are basically calling false flag on a law they themselves advocated for, because people are doing exactly what they wanted them to do with it, but not the right people.
I love this so much. First, I'm a child. I mean, since they're all such wackadoodles, I was amused by their names. Like, I know it's not, but it read like Miss Human and Mr. Seagull object to. Right. Anyways,
and Miss Human's from the Human Coalition too,
the
right?
Human Coalition.
Yeah, sure. I took the 310 to Human and didn't find anything there. Anyways, so okay, on to serious stuff. Although this is also funny. So they say, okay, well, the law did not intend, in fact, here, I'll read it to you. They said, these out-of-state suits are not what the bill is intended for.
Yeah.
Actually,
maybe should have made it a little more specific then.
Yeah,
you know?
no, it actually says in the bill that anybody can sue, including out-of-staters. So
right.
that actually was the intent. And by the way, if you want to know why it was the intent, it's because there's some very large anti-choice groups outside of Texas, and they wanted them to be able to sue as well. And so, but they're like, but wait, we didn't mean that other people. Wait, you guys are ruining it. Okay, yeah. and then there's a second part, which is even better. They say, again, the human seagull folks say, neither of these lawsuits are valid attempts to save innocent human lives. Well, that's the interesting thing about this law. The whole reason why it's so tricky is that it created a loophole. Normally, in a civil lawsuit, you have to prove damage to yourself, right? That's integral in a civil lawsuit. But in this case, they wrote a law saying you don't have to prove damages to yourself. You could be totally unaffected by it, and you still get to sue and collect the money if they did it. So the fact that the people suing are actually pro-choice is totally irrelevant, because according to the law, it's irrelevant if it affected them at all. They just get to sue and collect. In fact, one of the lawyers who sued said, look, I'm pro-choice, and if they voted down, it's good, and I'm glad. And if they voted in, I get $10,000.
Yeah. Well, he's been on house arrest for a couple years and was in prison for 10 years for that. So he needs to, he'll take that. He ain't going to turn away $10,000. But yeah, I just think it's, they meant for this thing to be like a deterrent, right, to people so they wouldn't get an abortion, because they're basically like, listen, just so you know, under this law, anybody from anywhere can sue you for anything related to having your abortion, and then two pro-choice guys sue them to highlight how ludicrous the law is. And they're like, whoa, no, not like that. We didn't mean not just anybody surely can do this. We only meant the right types of people with the right, causes should be able to use it. It's like, I just love when they're like, oh my God, it's the consequences of our actions. And they get all freaked out and scared by it, and don't know how to react. And it's like, you can't help but kind of appreciate these disgraced lawyers out here.
Yes.
Like, it seems like I don't know, everything about it seems like designed to highlight how ridiculous the law is. Do you know what I mean? The fact that neither one of them are in Texas, and neither one of them have anything to do with this. They're both disbarred attorneys. You know what I mean? It just seems like it's built to sort of point out, look, it's ridiculous that this can be done under this law, which means the law is ridiculous and something should be done about it. I think it's, loving the way it's unfolding thus far. Although, the Supreme Court being in the current iteration it's in, it's who knows what they're going to do ultimately where all this is concerned, for sure. But for now, I'm all for these two lawyers here and Dr. Braid.
Yeah, exactly. And you referenced that one is, yes, serving now in 11 years of a 15-year sentence for tax evasion and conspiracy. He's at home, though. He has been disbarred. That's Oscar Stilley. He's just kind of a character, and I feel like I want to read a couple of quotes from him. He tried to call Alan Braid, the doctor, and he tried to call on Monday morning and they wouldn't hear him out. I think they thought I was a bad guy, he said, chuckling. Dr. Braid couldn't be reached by the Daily Beast for comment Monday night. Quote, but I just want him to know, I respect the man, Stilley went on. Any man who would stand on his hind legs knowing good and well that the whole purpose of this thing is to bankrupt any doctor who tries it and does what he thinks is the right thing to do, I have a high degree of respect for him. Stilley doesn't think he will win if the suit goes to trial. He doesn't know anyone who believes that the heartbeat law is constitutional and enforceable, even after the Supreme Court declined to act and let the law go into effect. His real target, he says, are the legislators who installed the law in the first place. I see what you guys are doing, he said. Oscar's lying in wait for you. I'm coming.
Yeah, this guy, he's like runs a blog called bustingthefeds.com. He's really taking this whole being sent to federal prison thing pretty hard. Like he's not a big fan of federal stuff. The federal people doing federal things really rubs Oscar Stilley the wrong way, I have found. I saw a quote where he compared that. He said he sympathizes with women in Texas because they're getting screwed over by the government, and he knows all about that. So he's like dedicated his life to trying to get back at the man for putting him in prison 15 years ago for tax reasons or whatever. But yeah,
this might be the one thing we agree with him on. Like, don't ask him about anything else.
Right, yeah.
But he's
probably gonna get some wild opinions out of this guy.
Yeah, if you're trying to prove that the feds got the wrong guy, saying I'm laying in wait for you is probably not the best way to do that.
And they know exactly where, too. He's like, I'm laying in wait for you, specifically in my house, which I am forbidden by law to leave at any point in time. So that's where I'll be laying in wait.
Does this guy seem like a false flag? Like, does he seem like a plant, like that abortion providers and clinics would be like, hey, random dude from Arkansas, can you sue this to prove that? No, it's going in the complete opposite direction that I think a lot of people thought this law would go in. Because initially, and this is the first I've heard that anti-abortion folks or anti-choice folks have said, we don't even really want people to sue. I imagine that the lawsuits would be flooding in. They didn't, right? They know, and to pretty big effect, it is working, that the law was designed to scare people either seeking abortions or providing them, right? And that is still working because nobody knows what's going on. Everyone's afraid of being sued. People are like, well, I don't have $10,000. That is the goal, and that goal is working. However, the entire chink in the armor of, of this entire law is, well, what if someone sues? And again, because the damages aren't personal, they're strictly about the Constitution, right? It will get struck down. It may very well get struck down, and then it'll be, kaput. You're done. The law is no longer.
Yeah, it's actually potentially counterproductive, but let me quickly explain a bunch of things that are important to this. Number one, you got the conservatives saying that their favorite constitutional and judicial principle is plain reading of the language of a bill. And the plain reading of the language of this bill clearly states anybody can sue out of state, and no matter which side you're on. So they're screwed by their own judicial principles. For the layman, they don't care about no stinking legal principles, but when you go to court, that's what you're supposed to argue based on. And so you're gonna have trouble convincing conservative judges. And that's why this is among the reasons why it's counterproductive, because when they go to court with such an absurd law that is unconstitutional in several different ways, it makes it less likely that you'll overturn Roe v. Wade with a clown ass law like this. So they've actually done themselves some decent sized damage. But the reason why they don't want to sue is because they don't want to get tested because they know it's bad. But the reason why the threat works is not just because of the $10,000. There's of course multiple $10,000 that clinics can be charged or doctors can be charged, but it's the legal costs. So the legal costs is what kill you. And according to the law, even if they win, they cannot recover their legal costs. So they're trying to bury these clinics and bankrupt them on legal costs. That's why everybody's so worried. So my last point is, that's why among the reasons why Alan Braid is such a hero, because for him to put his neck out there with not only financially to challenge this law and say, yes, I performed an abortion past 6 weeks, but remember, the conservative in this country, unfortunately, are filled with lunatics. And there's stochastic terrorism everywhere. And so if you say, yeah, I performed an abortion, you raise your hand, you're playing with your life. And so it takes tremendous courage, and that should not be understated what a hero he is.
Absolutely.
Okay,
sure.
We're out of time in this segment. So let's take another quick break and more absurd Republicans when we return. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Trey, and Francesca with you guys today. I read a question about AOC earlier during the break, and R. Urbach was the person who asked that. And then I wanted to just mention one other person from Super Chat, and that is Ray Turner, AKA the Bearded Dragon, saying, Trey Crowder, the only Crowder worth watching on the power panel? Am I dreaming? Welcome to TYT, Trey. Here.
No need to pinch yourself, buddy. I am here. And thank you for that.
And Trey's been on a couple of times, but he's really glad to have him back on. All right, Frank, go ahead.
All right, well, JD Vance, the author, venture capitalist turned Ohio Senate candidate, who's just really trying to be America's next top MAGA, is trying to prove himself by having the most revolting take on rape, namely saying that it is an inconvenience. This was reported by the Daily Beast during an interview with Columbus, Ohio's Spectrum News 1 on that Texas abortion bill. JD Vance was asked whether a woman should be forced to give birth, even if the pregnancy was the result of incest or rape. And here's what he had to say.
Look, I think two wrongs don't make a right. At the end of the day, we're talking about an unborn baby. What kind of society do we want to have? A society that looks at unborn babies as inconveniences to be discarded?
Should a woman be forced to carry a child to term after she has been the victim of incest or rape?
Look, my view on this has been very clear, and I think the question betrays a certain presumption that's wrong. It's not whether a woman should be forced to bring a child to term, it's whether a child should be allowed to live, even though the circumstances of that child's birth are somehow inconvenient or a problem to the society. The question really to me is about the baby. We want women to have opportunities, we want women to have choices, but above all, we want women and young boys in the womb to have the right to life.
But yeah, some say inconvenient, others say illegal. Yeah, tomato, tomato. What are you gonna do? So yes, this is him. I'm sure he's got a bunch of deleted tweets in where he defends a woman's right to choose and the law, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. He went on to claim a bunch of ridiculous things, but thoughts on, I got a lot of thoughts on this, but thoughts on this, gentlemen?
Yeah. So I have a fun prediction to start with. I think that after JD Vance loses this primary, he will come out in some period of time and say, sorry, I didn't mean any of it. And politics makes you do silly things, and I withdraw half the things I said. That's my prediction. Why? Because like he was in, I hate to say legitimate circles because they're not legitimate in other ways, but he's a multimillionaire investor. He wrote this book that got turned into a movie. What that means is he, for better or for worse, he has rational acquaintances, okay? And he went to Yale Law, so he knows everything he's saying is total baloney. He just, he knows it to his core. And so that's why he's thirsty for power here. And if you want to win a Republican primary, you have to be the most evil and dumbest and craziest person. So he's trying to out crazy Josh Mandel. It ain't gonna happen. Josh Mandel's legitimately nuts. And so he's gonna lose, and then when he loses, he'll come back around and go, oh, my investor buddies who are all millionaires, you're not good people either, but at least a lot of you live in the rational world, and I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. Okay, yeah, apology ahead of time, not accepted.
Yeah, first of all, let me just say, as a fellow former trailer American, not all hillbillies, okay? This guy's an embarrassment to hillbillies, which is really funny if you know any of the stereotypes about hillbillies, So basically like, look, I know everybody thinks we hump our cousins and hate math and all that stuff, but this guy's giving us a bad name, but that's how I actually feel about it. Also, I don't know if I should say this or not, but it's true. I know JD a little bit. I haven't talked to him in a very long time. I first went viral in 2016, right when Hillbilly Elegy came out. Me and JD were both being brought onto TV to explain hillbillies to America. We were the two guys in that racket or whatever at the time. And also, as a reminder, everybody, Francesca alluded to this. Back then, he was tweeting how much Trump sucks. He was like being very reasonable and rational and everything. He also came to one of my stand-up shows with his wife, came backstage afterwards. We went to a bar and hung out all night. And I was like, I thought this guy was all right, And then, so I very, very strongly believe that everything Jank said is true about the play he's trying to make. He's trying as hard as he can to be what he thinks they want him to be, which is America's Next Top MAGA. I loved that, but the thing is, you can't coach that. Like you said about Mandel, you know what I mean? Like, he's legitimately crazy. Like you can't just pretend. You got to really have the screws loose upstairs to really connect with these people. You can't just put on the mask and make it happen, which is why he's getting dog walked in this primary. So I hope he's proud of himself. That's all I can say.
The Inconvenient Rape, indeed. That is the forthcoming documentary by J.D. Vance. I want to weigh in here a little bit, but first let's go to his next quote, where he said that Texas is actually saving children and Democrats don't care about the babies.
You have described yourself as 100% pro-life.
Sure.
What do you think about what's happening in Texas?
Well, I think in Texas, they're trying to make it easier for unborn babies to be born. There is a view common among leaders of the Democratic Party that babies deserve no legal protections in the womb. That is a common view in the Democratic Party. All I'm saying is that view's wrong. It is.
Okay, so no on a million levels. No, Texas does not care about babies. I looked this up, and sometimes we have to remember, right? Like, hey, which states have expanded Medicaid, right? This is medical assistance. This is the ability for young mothers. This is the ability for babies and children specifically to get health care, right? Poor people, disabled people, people who can't work, Medicaid expansion. Texas still hasn't expanded Medicaid, even though under Obamacare, under the ACA, there is federal funds waiting to help out real babies outside of the womb, i.e. babies, right? Babies inside the womb, fetuses, zygotes, twinkles in an eye. That's what that is. So no, Texas doesn't care about babies. And the second thing I'll say is I've done a lot of reporting on this issue. I went to El Salvador, where El Salvador has put the right of the fetus in their constitution, something that a lot of states around this country also want to do. What does that mean? It means that women literally just become vessels, that their lives, if they are in danger of death, right? If they have leukemia and they're not able to get treatment, it doesn't matter. You have to bring that baby to term. If the baby is unviable, if the baby will be born dead, it doesn't matter, because if the baby will kill the mother in childbirth, it doesn't matter, because that is what happens when you give personhood to something that is not yet a person. Okay, you become a second-class citizen, and that's what this is about. So yes, it's his play at making his mark and making his MAGA brand, but it actually means death for women and for children and for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think more than death, and that's a funny thing to say, but you'll see what I mean. What it does is it takes away the agency and hence the life and liberty of the women entirely. It makes them, as though their whole point is to carry other babies to term. Their point is not to live their own lives. They become irrelevant when you pass laws like that. And as Francesca said, they become vessels. Well, they're not vessels. They're independent human beings. And if you actually respected life, you would respect their lives. But they don't. That's not what this is about. This is about going back millennia to ancient times. And it has nothing to do with what's written in the Bible either. I've said this 1,000 times. You could look it up in 5:11 to 31 in the Bible. The Bible is pro-abortion and is actively in favor of it, and God actually carries out an abortion. So no, you go back 2,000 years, not to get to the word of Jesus Christ, you go back 2,000 years to the point where women were chattel and men treated them as property. And that's the whole point of this. And so when he says, oh, the Democrats don't want the fetus to have any rights at any point in the pregnancy, again, that's just not true. Roe v. Wade doesn't quite use the terms that I use, but it's, I think, helpful to explain it this way. When the fetus, it becomes an independent person at viability, then it has independent rights as a human being. But while it is dependent, either at the 5th month or as a zygote, it is still the choice of the mother to decide what to do. The woman, because you cannot put a gun to her head and basically say, your life is no longer your own. The state has kidnapped your body and you must serve the interests of the state rather than your own. That is deeply antithetical to actual morality and to treating women as the full citizens that they are. I mean, here we are in the year 2021, and we're still having a debate with right-wingers about whether women should have the same rights as men.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and like Francesca said, if it would be a little bit different, not entirely different, but if they actually cared about babies or children when they were born, the poor ones, or the immigrant ones, you know what I mean? Instead of taking their damn lunches away at school because their parents can't afford it, or putting them in cages and all this stuff. If they weren't all for that type of thing, I'd be a little more inclined to care about their arguments about what happens before they're born. You know what I mean? That's my main thing with it. But they're not, so to hell with them.
Totally.
All right, Fran, let's do the next story.
All right, well, Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is still somehow in Congress, even though she's been stripped of all of her committee positions. And to further prove that she has now become just a toothless meme, the other day on the House floor, she explained her problem with the Green New Deal using none other than memes. Take a look.
This is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real. The Green New Deal, surprise, serves China and China only. You can go ahead and put number 1 up. So today, talking about the Green New Deal and the all-out war on the men and women.
I don't even want to know what the other, just Xi Jinping with I owe Joe Biden something about Afghanistan. It doesn't matter. I just love the seriousness with which she's telling her aide, like, next slide, please. No, back one. Yes. Like, next meme. All right, this is obviously not the first time that she has used memes and images and just signs and such to basically just be a troll living in Congress. She falsely claims that the Green New Deal is written in the infrastructure bill and written in the $3.5 trillion budget. We wish it is not there. There is significant progress when it comes to climate change, but it's not there. Yeah, she's okay. China. Here, let me summarize. China. War on Americans, China. I don't even want to go to her quote, but you get it. The Green New Deal is just, she using a Scooby-Doo meme to say that it's just China in disguise. Well, I want to get to other folks who've also done this in a little bit, but thoughts, reaction. Is this gonna work? Is C-SPAN just spicy all of a sudden?
So
maybe.
Yeah, we might need a new segment when when boomers meme. Wishy Karen Wood and when boomers meme. So seriously, my favorite part, well, not seriously, my favorite part is she's like, you see that? Now you reveal that and it turns out it's China. And it's not the Chinese flag, it's the old Soviet flag.
I didn't even, yeah, you're right. It's just communism.
Yeah, it's communism. That's what it is. She's got like a shocked Pikachu queued up to talk about how she feels about Afghanistan or something. Like that was third on the list or whatever. Like, I'm surprised it took her this long to start communicating in memes. You know what I mean? Because she's sort of like, if the worst parts of the internet were made sentient and elected to Congress, like this is how memes is how her people, communicate nowadays. I'm surprised it took her this long. It's like the only way to adequately express their racist opinions towards immigrants is like with a picture of a minion wearing a sombrero. You know what I mean? Like that's how her people operate. So, I think it makes all the sense in the world because the world is a nightmare. So yeah,
and troll, look, you can't meme without someone counter meming. So there is a parody video I want to show you. Take a look.
This is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
If you've been a victim of Jewish space lasers, it says call 202. And I believe that's probably her actual office line. Marjorie Greene pictured in a tinfoil hat. You might think that this is obviously, she's an incoming congresswoman. Maybe she's new. She's not quite a boomer. She's sort of I would say like probably Gen Xer. But there is a boomer who also took to the Congress floor to try to meme, not as successful somehow. Take a look at Joni Ernst with her boards.
The scenario reminds me of this popular meme of a guy playing Uno.
Oh, Congress people. These are elected representatives of Congress.
When did this become a popular meme? I haven't seen this meme in my life.
I don't even know which part is the part you would swap out. Like, who is that guy? Anyway, it's all no. Okay, so she's trying to make a point about federal spending and the debt ceiling. And clearly that was one of like a few memes no one had heard of.
I can't get enough of these guys. So guys, look, there's threshold stuff. People say inappropriate things in the past, and they become different people, no problem. I know how that goes. They say mean things in the past, they say bad things, I got it, right? But it's hard to undo stupid, right? So Marjorie Taylor Greene thought that the forest fires in California were started by Jewish space lasers. Like, put aside the anti-Semitism of that for a second, if you can, if your brain can handle putting that aside for a second, and think about how dumb it is. Like, really? You thought Jews had space lasers and used it to start forest fires in California? Why wouldn't they, like in your wildly anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, why wouldn't they use it to do other things? Like control the earth or make money or whatever you insane people think. Nope, this was just for fires. Like, no, there's no
Hollywood is a different laser. That's
right.
Not
they got
space,
that's
a sea laser.
Yeah. They got like economy lasers. This was just the wildfire lasers that she was concerned about. She also believes that there's an actual tape that exists of Hillary Clinton sacrificing a small child, like wearing a goat head or something like that. That's an actual thing that she believes and posted on Facebook, years ago. And those two are just like two of very, very many. She believes all of them.
Yeah, and
it's fun.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's fun. No, but like, it's too bad though, because Marjorie Taylor Greene did this in a news cycle that kept on going, and so she was outdumbed by another representative in just the less than 24 hours. And so we gotta go to Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert, who sent out a press release calling to impeach Joe Biden, except impeach.
We're not making this up. It's not photoshopped. I read the article. I actually had not seen the actual sign until just now. That's why I let out the grunt. Like, really? It's in giant letters. How could you have not seen it? I'm each Biden. Is it like some sort of subliminal message?
Right.
Right. You know what? We're all each Biden.
Yeah, we are all each Biden. Yes, I'm each Biden. You're each Biden.
I don't know. I'm each Biden. Yeah,
it's unreal. It's like friendship. There's always a dumber fish, in this country, where Congress is concerned. Can't keep up.
Now, look, guys, if it looks like we're making fun of right wingers, that's because we are.
We are.
Yeah, 100%.
They make it so easy is the thing. It's hard not to.
Yeah, I mean, next is gonna be Marjorie Taylor Greene with a meme that's like, oh yeah, I found in the infrastructure bill Karl Marx, and she unveils a Scooby-Doo style, and it's Santa. And he's giving everything away around the end of the year. The Democrats say, oh, gifts for everybody. I guess that's what Das Kapital means. And we found these little minions, and she shows a bunch of elves. Look, it's not impossible, and it's not impossible.
For sure.
So, and then Joni Ernst is gonna beat it. She's gonna be like, okay, I saw this meme on the internet, and she's gonna put up a sign that just says meme. It just says meme. Because it doesn't have to be a meme and it doesn't have to make sense.
They're all gonna do TikToks pretty soon, or make a tick-a-talk. I don't know what they call it at this point.
I'm excited.
This is the thing. I mean, this is what happens when you have a celebrity president, right? When you have a meme lord as president, they spawn other meme lords. And that is the hellscape that we somehow currently and still live in. I'm Meech Biden. Meech Biden. You couldn't even voice to text it that bad.
Look, misspelling, it happens, man. Everybody misspells. That's not the issue. The issue is when you put up a giant sign and you're making a point about how great you are and how bad the other side is. Okay, look, last things, I'll leave it on a serious note. Marjorie Taylor Greene, in that same unbelievable half-hour speech about Scooby-Doo in the wrong country, she's like, Fran mentioned, China, China, China. She did it. She's like, this, and I was like, why? What is the infrastructure bill where we spend money in America on Americans? What does that have to do with China? The roundabout thing was like, but if we spend money to help Americans, it could one day help China. Because then we would have spent it and we would have borrowed some of it. And in the midst of all that, she said, and now they say they're gonna create millions of jobs. And obviously that's gonna help China. I was like, I'm pretty sure if we created millions of jobs in America, it would probably help America. But that's what they argue against.
What's so sad? Yeah, what's so sad is I feel like it's almost like she hasn't read Marx. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe the antidote is
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
She just read
very
a little
learned
bit
and
of
well
Marx.
read, Francesca.
She's like, what do you mean,
it's true.
Francesca? I saw all of Groucho's movies.
Richard Marx, she was a big fan of his work in the 80s.
By the way,
they think they've caught it. They think that, it disappeared because I have no way to link things together. If we spend money in this country and we create jobs, come on, don't you understand anything about transnational capitalism? Don't you understand anything about, I don't know, a sort of a nationalized workforce ability to to compete? I mean, even just basic capitalist economics, understand them, right? She even does right-wing populism bad. At least Trump understood a little bit of the we have to, trade deals and this, that. He didn't do any of it, right? He had no intention of actually helping the working class.
Right.
But it's they're saying all the keywords without stringing them together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, they're it's lunatic Mad Libs, is the way they operate now, where it's just Joe Biden equals blank blank socialism, blank blank China, blank blank transgender people, bad. And here's a meme. Let's all.
I need an adjective.
That's yeah.
Blank blank. I'm each. All right, guys, you guys are too much fun. All right, listen, we got to go to the next hour. That's where we have, if you thought all this was fun, that's where we have Moms Against Galileo. It's a real story. It's a real story, because that's where we are in America. But I want everybody to check out the Bitchuation Room. That's Francesca's excellent podcast. And then go to wellreadcomedy.com, red as in the color, okay, wellreadcomedy.com, to see where Trey is going to be performing, including Minneapolis tomorrow. But by the way, you gotta be vaccinated, okay? So God bless. Thank you, Trey and Fran. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anytime.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
We'll be back with Righteous Rage Against Galileo. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.